Why do you believe embodiment is the missing link in personal growth and spirituality?
So right now we're doing a bit of frustration, and then we'll be of contentment, and then there'll be a bit of peace, and then there'll be grief, and then it's like all of that stuff happens all at the same time, and our bodies can hold it. But we have been conditioned to filter out the ones that we don't like and then just stick with the ones that are okay.
That's the first thing you want to do. You want to say yes, because that's the feeling part that comes in. And then the mind kicks in because you failed maybe in the past or something happened, and then you start to overthink. And then that's where I was thinking in terms of procrastination.
So being embodied means that you're grounded in yourself, you're grounded in your own worth, you're grounded in yourself. What that then enables you to do is to have an emotion, process the emotion, let the emotion go, take the information the emotion is giving you. So what that means in society, and that's where I was going with that before, like I've never seen a woman start a world war.
Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. Ever look up and see those dull, grey skies streaked with chemtrails, and you feel your energy sink? You're not imagining it. Something in you knows the sky isn't supposed to look that way. But what if you could bring back the blue? What if there was a way to clear the air inside you and above you? That's where the Chembo comes in. They create powerful orgonite, tools that generate orgone energy, the life force that helps neutralize EMFs from your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi, and even 5G. It's nature's way of restoring balance, bringing cleaner air, calmer energy, and deeper sleep. Every piece from the Chembo is handmade, from tactical tower busters to beautiful pyramids and jewelry, crafted with the precise ingredients to generate real orgone energy. And here's the best part. They've proven it. For over 10 years, they've cleared thousands of miles of chemtrails, bringing the blue back to the skies around the world. So if you're ready to take back your weather and your well-being, go to thechembo.com. Use coupon code CM7 for 10% off and experience the shift for yourself. Don't fear the chemtrails or the EMF. Be empowered with the Chembo and never feel helpless again. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned because we have some more great content coming soon. Hello friends, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave, and today we're going to dive deep into the lies we've been told about our bodies. My guest, Iris Angellys, has spent over 30 years as a chiropractor and healer, working with more than 25,000 people. She's the author of Your Body is the Portal to Your Soul, and what she reveals is confronting, liberating, and radically different from what culture has taught us. We'll uncover why society conditions us to suppress our bodies, how trauma and shame live in our cells, and how shifting from self-criticism to body friendship can awaken deeper levels of consciousness, health, and intimacy. This isn't theory. Iris brings lived wisdom and practical tools that will challenge taboos, crack open truths, and give you seeds of transformation that you'll want to share with your circle. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear could change the way you live in your body forever.
When truth is blurred by lies and and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You got to be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it,
Hello, Iris. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm really well, thanks. Very happy to be meeting you and speaking to your audience today.
Yes, I'm looking forward to talking to you today because your story is kind of interesting, and especially the route that you came. I was kind of intrigued, and I thought, you know what, this would be a really good conversation to have and to share with people. So let's start from the beginning. What was the crisis moment where your body forced you to stop ignoring it? And how did that rupture change the way you live?
So I'm actually really lucky because I'm Danish, and Danish people have a much more relaxed attitude to their bodies than most other cultures that I've been moving in. So I now live in Australia, but I've lived in the UK and I've lived in Spain as well. So the knowledge and insights that I've collected in my book are based on having been a chiropractor for 30 years now and an applied kinesiologist, and watching what the common themes are that develop in people's lives. So I'm lucky in as much that I've never hated my body in the way a lot of people do, or never, felt it was inadequate in that way. But I have certainly had challenges where I didn't understand what my body was trying to tell me. And once I did understand, it was like, oh, okay. So I've never treated my body like an enemy. But what I notice is that that's what we're being conditioned into as young people, especially by the media, by the society. So there's a few different ways you can treat your body. So a lot of people don't think about their bodies at all. It's just they live sort of from the head up and live in their minds, live in their senses, and the body just goes on doing its thing without much communication, input, or care from the person living in the body. And then that's going to go bad at some point in time, because the body can only work on autopilot for so long. It's a bit like if you're driving your car from A to B, and it's a road that you travel fairly often, and you get to B and you realize you haven't actually experienced the journey because you haven't been paying attention. You've been going over something in your mind the entire time. And then there are some people that treat their bodies like a tool, like my body's got to be able to do X, Y, and Z because that's what I want to do. And there's not a whole lot of sense of, again, what does the body require in return for what we're asking the body to do? Or, I'll take a supplement, or I'll do this, I'll do that so that I can do X, Y, Z, have X, Y, Z experiences, or get X, Y, Z achieved or done. But there is a whole different way of looking at your body, which I sort of think of it, you can look at your body as a pet, like if you have a pet, you want it to thrive, and you give it the best food, and you give it a soft place to sleep, and you give it pats, and you give it love, and you give it exercise, and, you make sure that everything that little animal needs to thrive, it's given. So I think for a lot of people, if they could actually understand that their bodies are in that way an animal with its own needs, with its own desires, with its own wants, and like bodies want to thrive, bodies want to be healthy, bodies want to, feel great and be an excellent traveling companion for you through your life. So if we could basically give it what it needs in order to thrive, you're going to do a lot better, right? And then there's the ultimate, which is treating your body like your best friend. Like, your body is the only being you're going to spend the rest of your life with till your last dying second, guaranteed, right? So why would you not make your body your best friend? Why would you not relate to your body as if it's precious and worth loving and worth caring for? Because it's the only being that's never going to leave you, right? So instead of having a journey through life where you're having this hate relationship and tell your body it's flawed, or tell your body it's wrong, or tell your body it's not doing a good job, when from the body's point of view, what it's trying to do is get your attention and say, hey, I need you to rest more, or hey, I need you to drink better water, or I need better food, or I need you to get out into the sunshine, or I need more exercise of this particular kind. It's trying to communicate with us. And that usually looks like symptoms, especially if you've been ignoring that for a while. Like, if you listen to the subtle hints and act on them, you're probably not going to get the great big boulders. But, the longer the dysfunction keeps going, the more uncomfortable the body gets, the more it's going to try your attention by turning up the volume on how it's communicating with you. And then most of us, have some coffee or take a pill or do something else just to make that symptom go away. And that's a bit like smashing the low petrol signal on your car. Like, you wouldn't do that. You'll go, oh, car needs more petrol. So we need to listen to what our body is trying to tell us and then give it what it needs, because otherwise you're borrowing tomorrow's resources for today, and then eventually you're going to end up paying that with interest. So if you can be proactive and go, well, my body loves me. My body wants to thrive. My body wants to go on an exciting life journey with me and wants to collaborate and cooperate with me. And we can treat it that way and give it those signals, like, instead of hating on a particular part of your body, why don't you find something that you love and then focus on that? Give it that love, give it that appreciation. If you think about it in terms of molecules of emotion, which your readers may be aware of, which is that each emotion has a particular set of molecules that signal to the cells, this is the state that we're in right now. It could be fear, it could be love, it could be joy, it could be sadness, it could be grief. And these molecules of emotion are a bit like it is like a substance, right? So whatever you do a lot of, you get more receptors for, meaning that when that emotion is running low, you will find a reason to have more of it. I hope that makes sense. It's like people reaching for the next cigarette when their nicotine is running low because their body cells are used to having a certain amount of nicotine in their system. It's exactly the same principle. So if we are in a state of hating our body, then those molecules of emotion are going to flood the whole body. And what does the body then feel? It's trying its very best. It's loving you unconditionally. And here it's getting all these hate messages. It's being told, you're not good enough, you're not doing well enough, X, Y, Z. How about if we then find something to be grateful for, something to appreciate, or something to love about our body, and flood our body with these beautiful, love chemicals? Is that going to make our cells work better? Absolutely. So, does that answer your question?
Yes. So I had a couple of thoughts that all at the same time. So Firstly are you aware of the body positivity movement? Right. And the body positivity movement kind of like has warped and distorted what you've said. Okay, so the body positivity movement is basically a warped version of what you're saying. So if you are sort of like very overweight, sometimes even obese, the body positivity movement is that you are beautiful and people should accept who you are, and you shouldn't have to change. You don't have to do anything because you are a queen, you're a king, and you look great with 100 kilos overweight and stuff like that. So it's kind of like taking what you're saying and twisting the love, which is basically hate for yourself, because you can't really love yourself if you're 100, 150 kilos overweight, you know? And then what happens now is that because, like you were saying, all these emotions have molecules and stuff attached to it, it's a false molecule that they're actually feeding themselves. And then that sort of like guilt and shame, which is really the underlying, I would say, emotion and feeling, is kind of like been distorted to be good. So they go and eat more, or they do more of the same to get bigger and bigger. And they get addicted to that emotion, you know? So it's like you were saying, if the emotion is getting low, you need more of it. So you need more depression, more sadness, eat more puka pies, drink more Coca-Cola. And then you just keep feeding this negative emotion loop, you know? So that's why I was asking if you were aware of the body positivity movement, because what you're talking about is, in my humble opinion, from observation, what the body positivity movement is, but an inverted movement, an inverted thought process, you know?
It's you're absolutely right with that. That's a mind-based mindset. You know, yes, I'm this big and I should love and accept myself exactly as I am, but it's a mind thing. It's not dropping into the body and going, hey, what do you actually need? It's not looking at what are the emotions that are going on for me that make it so painful to be on planet Earth, that I need to get this big, that I need to eat in order to just be able to function. And then dealing with whatever those emotions are so that you can feel genuine love and acceptance of yourself. So it's instead of going into the body and actually creating a collaborative, and considerate relationship with the body, it's all just up in the mind. That's what it feels like to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you can get used to get cancelled when you challenge the body positivity movement, you know? So everything is inverted in this world. And so with that being said, what did you have to unlearn from religion, school, or even family in order to finally trust your body?
Big question, that. So I grew up in Denmark till I was 10. And then I moved to Spain with my mother, and it was just the two of us at that point. And being tall, blonde, blue-eyed and skinny, I got a lot of attention that I didn't know what to do with, and I didn't know if I was safe. And my father had stayed behind in Denmark, and I didn't feel like I could express the grief around that. So I went into this state of numbness that today would probably be called high-functioning depression, basically. The one saving, and that was that way for my entire teenage years. It was really difficult to connect with joy. It was really difficult to connect with love. It was all about just surviving and trying to find a point of safety, which I looked for in the wrong places. I was looking for partners to give me that sense of safety. But if you are in that state, what you're going to end up is basically partners that are abusive. So that was where I started out. The one thing that was my saving grace was that I knew life didn't have to feel this way. I knew there was a better way to feel life. Not that I had any idea whatsoever of how to be able to step into that life. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the knowledge. So at a very young age, sort of in my late teens, early 20s, I started going to like self-help weekends and breath work and, you know, Reiki and all of that stuff. Tried everything. And eventually arrived with some techniques that have been creating helpful, sustainable change for me, which I'm still involved with. One of them is called Lifeline Technique. And also, like, starting from a sense of such low self-worth and then gradually clawing that back together And I had two big moments in my journey. One was when I was 26, and at that point in time, I was a chiropractor. I'd been a chiropractor for 2 years. I'd got married and come to Australia to be with my husband, who at the time was a chiropractic student. And turns out he failed to tell me before we got married that he was a diagnosed psychopath and alcoholic. And so I'd left everything behind, my job, my income, my family,
Wow.
easy reach to family in terms of being in Australia rather than Europe. And, it was just sheer manipulation. It was, building you up so you felt a little bit good about yourself and then just tearing you straight back down again. And I'm sure many people listening to you will recognize what I'm talking about. And I remember the third time he canceled the relationship, we're standing in the kitchen, and I had this clear moment of, okay, I'm either going to break for this man or I'm now going to leave. And I decided I wasn't going to break for anyone. So I left. And I think he was quite surprised at that, because he expected me to just, bend over backwards some more and try to rekindle and try to soothe him and all that sort of thing. But that was a really clear moment of decision that, no, I'm not going to do that. And while subsequent relationships were codependent, they weren't abusive. And then at 33, I had another one of those moments where I just, left someone who was smoking pot. And I had made it very clear that I wasn't going to be with anybody who did substances. And he thought that, I would relent on that, and that I would be okay with him smoking pot. And that's not something that I could live with. And I decided that I would be single from here on in, because clearly this relationship caper wasn't working. And that was the moment where I was quiet and I was sitting with what was coming up for me, not necessarily in a focused or intentional way. It's happened by default. Like I was still going to work and doing all those sorts of things. But there was this space where I sat with the discomfort. And then 3 months later, I met my current husband. So by stepping into this place of, I'd rather be on my own than looking for validation from the outside. And that's a really key thing. Like our entire culture is built on look on the outside, get somebody else to approve of you, get so many likes, do something and everybody goes, ooh and ah, and then it's on to the next thing. Like none of that has any durability in it. So if we can find our own worth on the inside, connect with that. Like every human has inherent worth. Connect with that worth on the inside. Then all of that stuff's not important anymore. And suddenly you're much more empowered to make decisions that are actually in alignment with what your soul wants you to do. So those were the two big moments of unlearning, or the two biggest moments of unlearning. There have been many, but those are the two really big ones that stand out.
Yes, what you're saying is true, because today we are basically drug addicts, but drug addicts not in the way people think. We chase dopamine, and because of social media, we are dopamine addicts. Like if you upload a video or a picture or whatever and you don't get enough likes, you delete it and upload another one so that you get the number that you were expecting or you wanted. When I go to the gym and I'm training, I'm just seeing, and okay, mostly girls do it. But there are some guys, but it's in a minority, to be fair. But mostly girls just going in front of the mirror and taking these pictures, turning their butt to the side, and I call them butt pics. Just twisting to show their derriere. And then obviously they're going to post those on social media to get more likes and, hey, you're so beautiful, you're this and you're that. And it's the exact same external validation that you're talking about. So that's why I said that basically today, most people are drug addicts, but because dopamine technically is a hormone, is a chemical. So I guess you can call it a drug, it's just internal inside, but we're like drug addicts, we're dopamine addicts, and we need to get more and more of that hit in order to get the high, So even the same thing we were talking about before with the body positivity movement, which is I would say an inversion of what you shared, is the same thing with social media and likes, comments, and shares, So how do you see the body as a spiritual teacher rather than just flesh and blood?
The things that we don't deal with in terms of emotions, beliefs, behaviors, things that are, let me call them unaligned with what our soul's desire is, or what our heart desires for us, that we push away, that we ignore, that we deny, that we pretend aren't there, end up sitting in our body somewhere. And like, I think of everything in terms of energy, right? Like if you take it to the very fundamentals, matter is just energy that's really, 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 really slow. And energy is matter that's sped up by twice, or the speed of light times the speed of light. Yeah, EMC square. So everything is essentially energy. So think of emotions and beliefs as energies. So if you have an emotion coming up, an emotion is just feedback, right? It's just a way to go, oh, okay, that really aligns with me, or that doesn't align with me. What's the appropriate response? So if we can allow those emotions to be present, give us information that they're trying to give us, and then we can relax them, that's usually a matter of maybe a couple of minutes. But if, for example, we've been brought up with, boys don't cry or girls don't get angry, and we have that emotion and we're not allowed to feel it, we're not allowed to express it, then that energy gets stuck in our bodies. And the more of that you do, the more of that you get. So down the track, if that starts when you're 3, by the time you're 30, whenever something happens that, for girls makes angry or for men makes sad, you're not just reacting to the thing that's happening in front of you right now. You're reacting to 30 years worth of anger or sadness, say. And all of that, in the meanwhile, is being carried in your body or in your energy field. So the challenge is to, allow the emotions to move through and let them be there, take the information, not judging it. It's just information. It's up to you how you respond to that, but it's information. If somebody walks over a boundary and you get that feeling, like a bit of anger rising up is a good thing, because it's like, I'm not okay with that. And how am I now going to enforce that boundary? So that's the desired state to be in, as far as I'm concerned. But then it's also necessary to unwrap the layers of old stuff that's been going on inside, right? That's that discomfort that comes up when you're by yourself and things are silent, when you're not distracted with exercise or screens or actual chemical drugs. And then I think most of us do well if we have somebody who can guide under those circumstances, because most of us didn't get the tools to actually do this effectively, right? That's why there's so many techniques and so many good coaches out there, because they literally hold that space and go, okay, so how are you actually feeling about that? And then it can come up and it can be released. The beautiful thing is that your body is never going to give you more than you can handle at any particular point in time. If 30 years worth is too much, it'll maybe give you 3 months worth, right? Until you get better at processing it. So this spiritual aspect of the body is, the body has its own intelligence. The body senses energy. The body has not a reaction, opinion. If something comes along your way and it's not in alignment with your soul and your heart, your body will have a reaction to this, and that reaction is feedback to you. So if I had listened to my body early on in the piece before I got married, I would have known that sitting with that discomfort that I wasn't prepared to sit with at the time was going to be a much better decision than getting married to somebody and moving to the other side of the world. Yeah. Like, I was trying to get away so hard from all the things I wasn't feeling that I put myself into a situation where basically I had no choice. And I was lucky because I was young at the time and because the marriage didn't last very long. So if we can listen to our bodies will tell us about, what the body needs itself to thrive, but it will also tell us about how what we're encountering is aligning with us. And if we can listen to that, then our bodies will gently help us navigate life, help us navigate the world. That doesn't feel safe over there. Maybe I'll go home a different way. There's this course happening and I can feel all this excitement in my body. Like, I don't know what the course is going to be like, but I just have this incredible, exciting tingling in my body. Like, I will go and do that because there's just, my body goes, yes, I can feel the vibration of the thing I'm drawn towards. And I really want this. What other examples can I give? Actually, with food, for example, if you are somewhere and there are a couple of different foods on offer, notice how your body leans into towards some foods and away from other foods. So, for example, I would think the vast majority of bodies that are fairly healthy as opposed to addicted would feel really good about being in a place where there's lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. It's a cliche, but it works. And, all the colors are bright and, things are juicy and flavorful and all those sorts of things versus junk food, Like, I look at a junk food wrapper and my body recoils and go, oh no, let's not go there. Because to me, that's not actually not only not just food, it's actually anti-food, It's the kind of thing that if you consume it, your body will use up resources to try and deal with it, what you've put in there. So our bodies know. It's just a matter of listening to the guidance that they're offering us.
So the way you're explaining it is almost like if I never thought of it like the body had its own intelligence. I just used to think of it like the body just reacts to certain foods and stimuli. And then also the way I guess you're explaining it is like the body is basically an antenna, because if the body is energetic, which we know it is, antennae pick up signals. So because energy has a frequency and a signal, basically is its own intelligence with its own energetic frequency. And you said something very interesting, because I didn't really think of it like that, because like yesterday I went in the supermarket and I would go through the aisles and stuff. And when it comes to like the junk food section, I never feel like, oh, I want to pick up anything at all. I wouldn't say that my body is repulsed, but I just like, like I don't have any sort of like a feeling or attraction to it. But if I do see like cabbage and like vegetables and like, because I eat a lot of like strawberries and blackberries and raspberries, like I would just be like, there's like this sort of like almost like a dopamine hit that goes off inside of me that is like this excitement because I found them, But I would never get that feeling if I see Doritos. Although one of my sort of like healthier chips, like they're vegetable chips, they're actually in that same aisle. So you can still find, if you know what you're looking for, some decent stuff in that section. But they're very much in a minority and they're very much hidden. So, but yeah, I never thought of it like my body wasn't like attracted to it. It's just like I've not eaten junk food for so long. And if I do eat junk food, I tend to eat like the healthier type versions, the ones which are like, okay, they were passed. They're not the best, but for one day a week, they're okay. You know what I mean? But things like Doritos, nah, hell nah. So why do you believe embodiment is the missing link in personal growth and spirituality?
Like we mentioned before, certainly the way I observe it and the way that I was socialized, living life happens very much through the mind. We try to think our way through life. but we actually need to be open to feeling our way through life. I think I forgot your question. Say your question again.
That's a very interesting distinction. So my question is, why do you believe embodiment is the missing link in personal growth and spirituality?
Embodiment. That's right. Embodiment. So, okay, let's start that from scratch. So most people live from their minds. They think their way through life. They perceive life through their vision, through the hearing, through their tastes, and everything happens sort of from the chin upwards for most people most of the time. The challenge with life is to feel our way through life. And to do that, we need to drop into our body. Now, if you imagine your body is like a room in a house, what's in that room? If that room is full of balloons that are inflated, it's going to be very tricky to move around that room. And the balloons are all the emotions, the old belief system, all the things that aren't supporting you, that you haven't yet been prepared to deal with. So if you can start popping some of those balloons, using various different techniques to heal the wounded aspects of yourself, suddenly you have a whole room, and suddenly you can open up the window and let the light in. And that's like embodiment to me. If your body is full of old stagnant energy of, old emotions, undesirable emotions. And look, for some people that can even be joy. They grew up and it wasn't okay to be joyful, which is like feels so disconnected to me. Anyway, I digress. So if you have your body full of old emotions, old beliefs, old habits, your soul can't actually drop in, right? Like I think of it as, again, energy. The higher the frequency of the body is, so the fewer unhealthy emotions and beliefs are in there, and the better the nourishment is, and the more the care and the thriving are of the body, the easier it's going to be for the soul or higher self or whatever you want to call it to actually drop into the body and live in it, because there's a frequency match. If you live in a body that's getting fed junk food and soda on a daily basis, or that's being worked really hard and not rested enough, or if it's the eyes are glued to a screen all the time, your soul's gonna go, well, I'm not really welcome, and it's going to go off and do whatever souls do when they're not hanging out with us. But if your body is one that's full of health and vitality and joy of living, then the soul can drop in and we can live more and more in alignment with our soul and with our hearts. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And you kind of like answered my next question, because I was going to ask you how do you define embodiment, and why is it more than just mindfulness or things like yoga,
It is, mindfulness and yoga are ways of making the body a place for the soul to inhabit. A body that can move with grace and ease and joy through yoga, or a mind that can be still. That's when the soul can come through. On my YouTube channel, I have 30-odd very short meditations where the invitation is to tune into a particular frequency, like, for example, gratitude, and just really notice what that feels like in your body, right? Like every emotion has a sensation, or every state you're in has a sensation. So just take a big breath, think of something that you're grateful for, and just notice what that feels like in your body. Or friendship, think of somebody that you have a really lovely friendship with, and notice what that energy feels like in your body. Or joy, think of something that makes you feel joyful. Notice what that feels like in your body. Yeah, so it's almost like running these paths so that we can recognize the emotions or the states when they're happening for us on the outside. And that's what embodiment is. Yeah, like what's going on in my body right now? And what does that translate into in terms of what state am I in right now? What state is my body in right now? What are the pathways that are lighting up in my brain and in my body at the moment? So that's what embodiment is to me.
You know, that's a really interesting distinction that you explained there, because from what you're saying, I am starting to get like an idea now of like, okay, my body is sort of like the portal to the world, and how it feels is a representation of my thoughts and feelings. And if I am like feeling stressed, the body will tell me, because it will feel it instead of me thinking, oh, I'm stressed. Because you said something that was kind of interesting, where we tend to think our way through life, but you're saying that we need to feel our way through life. And for a lot of people, they would be like, but if I just have all of these feelings, then they're going to get out of control. And how am I going to handle it? Like, you know, I still need to be very cognizant of, you know, me, where I am or what I'm doing. I just can't let feelings take over. You know, me, I have to be logical. I need to be, you know, very direct and what's not. So how do you answer someone that says that, you know what I mean, if you were to just feel your way through life, that it means then that you would become illogical and you wouldn't be able to think straight and you would make poor choices because you're all in your feelings? How would you reply to someone that would propose something like that?
I would say to them that they haven't been given the tools to deal with their feelings and emotions in a way that they're actually intended to be used. Like that scenario sounds like that thing I talked about, where you're reacting not just to what's happening in the moment, but what's, you know, decades worth of that particular thing in various different guises. Like really, anytime an emotion comes up and it feels overwhelming, it's an invitation to heal that part. It's a wounded part that says, hey, I'm still here. You know how you said you were going to get back to me later? Well, later could be now. Are you ready to hold me now? Are you ready to accept me now? Are you ready to allow me to be here now? If you are willing to, so the whole control thing, right? We've been told we need to control our emotions. What does that mean? It actually means closing them off and stuffing them into our bodies and not allowing them to be there. Like I said before, if you can allow the emotion to be there, if it's a ordinary size emotion, 5 minutes and it's moved through your system. If it's a really big emotion, like if you've got grief and you've just lost somebody that was really dear to you, it might take longer than that. But even then, it comes in waves, right? Like you ride that wave and you feel the sensation, and then you get a little rest from it. And then it comes back again, and then you rest from it. And eventually, as these waves move through you, if you can honor them at the time, you know, that grief will diminish and you will just be left with the emotions, right? The good memories and the good emotions, the love that you felt for that person. So controlling emotions is really just postponing emotions, because they're going to come and get you sooner or later. You know, like if it's not showing up as, if you ignore things long enough, they will actually change your body, because your body has to carry these emotions and your body will actually get sick. And there will come a point in time where your body says, I really can't do this anymore. I need your help. And then it can look like sickness. You know, like you've probably come across Louise Hay. She was sort of one of the first people to say this. And she goes, this particular state in your body, this particular joint will generally mean this thing. And here's an affirmation. Now, for me, a lot of affirmations are very mind-based. And in my experience, if you say an affirmation, then everything that's not congruent with it will come up. So it's actually a really good way to work with things if you're prepared for that to happen. But anyway, I digress.
That's pretty interesting though. So no, you were, because I was asking you, like, you know, how do you you know, rebuttal against someone that would say, you know, you can't be all in your feelings. But you know what you said is so true, because basically from what I have seen in the little research I've done, people that get cancer, they between 6 months to 18 months prior to them developing cancer, they had a major traumatic event in their life. Either it was they lost their job, they had some bout of depression, someone died, something major happened that rocked them to the core, and then they developed cancer afterwards. So what you're saying about the body holding the trauma and creating sickness is true. So, in that respect, the body is saying, hey, look, like, you need to deal with this thing, Now, in the case of cancer, from what the little research I've done, a lot of it seems to be part mental, because you're not able to, I guess you could say it's emotional as well, to be fair. I think it's a bit of a combination of both, because the mind is focused on the event, and the body is just feeding back the mind that same emotion. So you're creating a negative feedback loop. So it's a bit of a both that you need to deal with. But like Saint Germain's take is very interesting, where he says that thoughts only become real when they're clothed in feelings. And his take on it is that if you can capture the thought at its source before it enters the body, it will not become reality or your reality. So it means then that you would have to sort of like deal with the thought in the mind first. But then if it goes into the body, then it becomes like a trauma. So then you have to do another process, which would be to heal the trauma itself, which is the forgiveness part that would be required in order to heal traumas, and or if it's a fear, to confront that fear. So it's kind of like very interlinked as well. So why do you think mainstream culture conditions us to ignore the body's wisdom?
Can I just circle back to what you were saying there?
Yeah, sure.
In terms of catch the thought before it gets clothed in feelings and ends up in your body. We have been taught judgments on feelings. So we have been taught, for example, anger is bad or sadness is bad, right? So if one of those emotions comes our way and we go, oh, if I feel that or if I express that, then that means I'm a bad person, or I will be expelled from the tribe, or I will be not accepted. And those are all very deep core needs. Then that's when we have a thought clothed in emotion, right? So if we can be neutral about what that means, it's the same if you walk down the street and somebody gives you a funny look. You can either take that personally, go, oh, that person doesn't like me, or that person thinks I'm this, or this person thinks I'm that, or you can go, the person looked at me. I actually don't know what was going on for that person at the time. I might just have been in their field of vision completely by accident, and they were actually thinking about, the Titanic sinking, whatever, so we make these judgments about things, and that's because we have this baggage of old stuff that's still hanging out and that's resonating with it. It's like we're searching for a reason why we would want to feel a particular way, because we're addicted to those molecules of emotion, right? So if we can get to a place where we're, basically feeling our own self-worth, following our heart, and acceptance is really important to this too. So for me, one of the biggest challenges in life is understanding that as a human being, we all have the potential to be a saint, and we all have the potential to be like Hitler, right? The potential is there for everyone. How our lives turned out depends on what choices we make, right? So we have this massive capacity, and that also means that we have this massive experience of different emotions or different situations. And sometimes we're being asked to hold something really difficult, like a really big grief, alongside something that might be really joyful, all at the same time. Like that's a tricky bit, like life doesn't happen in, okay, so right now we're doing a bit of frustration, and then we'll be of contentment, and then there'll be a bit of peace, and then there'll be grief, and then it's like all of that stuff happens all at the same time, and our bodies can hold it. But we have been conditioned to filter out the ones that we don't like and then just stick with the ones that are okay. But if we can accept that, sometimes I can be mean. Sometimes I do stuff because I'm lazy and I'm not putting in the effort that I really needed to in this context because I was feeling lazy. And if I can be going, okay, well, that wasn't my finest hour, but it doesn't necessarily make me a bad person. You know, it doesn't actually change my worth. It's a bit of feedback to me to next time be more mindful and have my priorities right. It's a learning experience. It's an experience. It's an invitation to step up and level up. Then the emotions or the situations that happen, we can be a lot more neutral about. And if there's a feeling that comes our way, we can go, oh, okay. Yeah, all right. That's what's going on right now. And this other thing is going on as well. And this other thing is going on as well. So we're not judging it. We're just having it. We're having an experience, but we're not defined. We're not defined by our story. I think that's one of the biggest things. You know, our story is something that happened to us, but and there are invitations to have experiences and the invitations to basically keep rising to be the best possible version of you that you can be at any point in time. But none of that means anything in particular about our worth or about, our value or about whether we're lovable or not, or whether we're connected, you know, whether we're an integrated part of God, goddess, the universe, whatever we want to call it, or whether we, you know, belong to earth or not. Like those are givens. Everything else is an experience. So there's a difference between who we are and what we're experiencing. A lot of people get wrapped up in, this thing happened to me, and because of that, the rest of my life is just worthless. It's like, how about you take an invitation, go, this thing happened to you, and it could have been incredibly hurtful and incredibly traumatic. But what is that part actually inviting you to bring out of yourself so that you can make it count, make it something that happened to you, but that then propelled you to be even more in alignment with your heart and with your soul?
Yes. So basically, then again, it goes back to using the body to tell us what to do. So why does mainstream culture condition us to ignore the body's wisdom? Or what do you think that?
Oh, you can't mess with somebody who knows their own worth and takes good care of their body and feels good in their body and in their life, right? Like big commercial interests need us to keep consuming, keep looking for validation from the outside, keep being anxious about, am I good enough? Am I up with the latest fashion? You know, am I being seen in the right places? And they make trillions of dollars on that, right? So basically, if you start tuning into your own power and you tune into your own heart and you live in alignment with your heart, they can advertise till the cows come home. You know, you're just not going to go and buy that bit of junk food, right? You're just not going to go and get that bit of soda or whatever, because you know your body will not feel good with that. And I'm not going to do that to my body because I love my body, you know? Or, oh, that's the latest fashion. Yeah, I'm not interested. That doesn't feel comfortable when I wear it. You know, why would I put myself through an experience? Don't get me started on high heels, right? Like, why would I ask my body to wear something like that is so obviously detrimental just because somebody at this point in time has decided that's the height of fashion? You know, no, I'm not doing that. So if you own your power in that way, if you love your body, listen to your body, do the inner work, you become ungovernable because you just have this immediate filter that goes, that's not in alignment. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to do the thing that feels in alignment for me. So that was a fairly short answer for a change.
Man, you're going to have some of the women coming for you and say, man, we those high heels make us look sexy and we look good. And, you know, I think the red bottoms are the, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the red bottoms are the like top of the line shoes, you know? And you see them in the music videos and the movies a lot, right? So you can have some of them coming at you and saying, hey, you know what I mean? We like our red bottoms. We like our high heels, you know? So in your view, what's the difference between listening to symptoms versus hearing the body's wisdom?
So it's the same thing. It just happens at different points in time. So if you proactively listen to your body's wisdom, what you're listening to is the whispers, the little nudges, okay, one example. If I work on a computer, there will come a point in time where my body says, do you know, I've had enough for now. Like, my concentration will waver a little bit, or I'll get frustrated a bit or something. And my body will say, look, can we just get up and move around a little bit and have a glass of water and, and then we can come back to this. And sometimes it looks like, the shoulders get a bit tight and burny. I think most people have probably experienced that at some point. And then my mind can kick in with, I'll just finish this. It should just take 5 more minutes. And then I can just pack the whole thing away, and then my body and I can go play outside, whatever. Invariably, what happens is that thing that should have taken 5 minutes, because I'm in the state of being angry and frustrated and my body's had enough and it's not wanting to sit in front of the computer anymore, it takes half an hour or 3/4. And by the end of the half or 3/4 of an hour, I'm just utterly exhausted. I've got no joy left in my body. I need to sleep, or I need to do something else. So instead of listening at that 5-minute mark and getting up and doing what my body needed me to do and then coming back and actually taking 5 minutes, my mind decided, oh no, I'll just, and then, we had this massive big consequence, right? So that's a small example. So if you can listen to the whispers, then that your bodies are giving you, then you're listening to your body's wisdom when it's still little, right? The symptoms happen when when you've been ignoring your body for extended period of time, or very emphatically in some way, and the whispers are not coming through, and it's starting to hit you over the head with a baseball bat because it really, really needs you to pay attention to it and to give it what it needs so that it can keep itself healthy, so you can both thrive. So to me, it's just on a continuum, basically.
That's very interesting, because I think that example you gave will resonate with many people, because most people's lives now are screen based or on a computer or something like that. And I can say that, like, there have been times where I be on the computer working and stuff, and that same scenario would happen to me where, my body would ache just ever so slight, and I'd be like, all right, just 5 more minutes. And sometimes 5 minutes turns into 2 hours. And then when I get up, like, I'm just destroyed, done, So, that was a very good reminder for me. And I think that was a very good reminder for most people, that, because I don't think that we actually look at our bodies like that. Whereas, like, maybe a good 5-minute walk around or something like that, because we're not really taught that. We're not really trained that. We don't even study it, because we're so focused on just like doing work and having progress, and not actually being in tune with our body, because it's almost like you are having a relationship with your body, and your body is separate from you. From this conversation, this is how I'm kind of like seeing it now, in a way, because I feed my body great and I exercise and stuff, but I never looked at it like it is like its own entity, and I have to befriend it, where, like, sometimes I treat my friend badly and I don't rest it enough, and it's telling me, hey, maybe you should get up and walk for 5 minutes, So that was a really, really good example, even though it was very simple, but I think it resonates. At least it resonates with me, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people as well. So what do most people misunderstand about trauma, how it lives in the body?
I think the biggest misunderstanding is that if you pretend it's not there, it will just go away. Like, you've lived in the UK, I've lived in the UK, and there's this concept of stiff upper lip, which is, steel yourself, put your armor on, keep on going, pretend it didn't happen. But yeah. And then you get much more expressive cultures, like, like I lived in Spain. So the Mediterranean people are very expressive and very, Yeah, very the opposite. That we really let it all hang out. So I think the biggest misunderstanding is that if you pretend it didn't happen, then you can just move on as if it was still like before. The thing is, holding all that trauma down takes an awful amount of energy and resources. So a part of your own energy is bound up in this ball of trauma that you're trying so hard to control, that all of that is not then available to living your life and connecting with people and feeling alive in your body and enjoying life and shining the brightest light that you possibly can. And like we said before, if that trauma sits there for long enough and you keep refusing to actually process it. Now, how do you know when you've processed it? If you think of that trauma and there's a lot of emotion coming up, you haven't. If you think of that trauma and it's something that happened to you, but it doesn't affect who you are right now, then you've processed it. As a rule of thumb, there's probably more in-depth ways of analyzing, but that's how I feel about it with the trauma that I've been through. You know, if I can get to a place where, oh, well, that happened. And as a result, I did these things. Actually, gratitude for me is a way to get there, right? If I look at something that happened to me that I feel really hurt or traumatized by, but I can then see how I changed in response and how I ended up in a place where I'm now much more at peace with myself, love and accept myself a whole lot more, am a lot more calm, am a lot more present with my life and the people in my life, then I can feel grateful for that experience, because if it wasn't for that, I would have probably just kept staying numb. So for me, gratitude is a really, really nice tool to help process something like a trauma. And gratitude is really good for the body. Like, the body doesn't care what it is you're feeling it about, but being flooded by those gratitude molecules is really good for the body. It's really restorative, right? So we have to develop the courage to process what's happened to us that's been difficult and challenging and hurtful and traumatizing, so that we can move on into the next biggest, most amazing and best feeling version of ourselves.
What you said about gratitude is so true. And it is one of the things that I tell my clients all the time. And it is one of their habits that they have to do every day, because I find that, you know, gratitude, man, is so underrated in the whole experience here on earth, because in this human experience, especially now in this modern age, we have all of these different things that tries to lower our energy. You know, we have from the EMFs, we have the societal programming, the social programming, the screens, the food, everything. And as a result, our default energetic signature is very low. One can say negative, depends on which word you want to use. But I find that when you actually take some time, and I always tell them, you don't need anything more than 5 minutes, just 5 minutes a day, and that's it. You know, you give gratitude for whatever it is you're grateful for. Because in reality, you start to realize, actually, you know what? My life is actually much better than I think, you know, because, like, you know, you have water, you know, like when you go to wash your hands, you don't have to use a bucket and a cup. You know, you can turn on the tap and it comes out. You know, you're warm, you can have your condition, you know. So your bed is dry, it's not wet, you know, and, you know, you have a blanket if you live in a cold climate to keep you warm, right? So you could take this down to the micro level of gratitude. But when you do that, or if you do that, you end up at the same place where you realize, actually, you know, I have everything that I need in this present moment, you know? And I think is like something that really is a game changer when you practice it a lot, you know?
Gratitude is like magic. The more you practice gratitude, the more you have to be grateful for. It's a virtuous cycle. And the thing is, again, it doesn't matter what it is you're feeling grateful for, if it's a big thing or a little thing, because you have that pathway of gratitude being activated. So like you're saying, if you've got running water and you've got shelter and you've got, regular food supply, you're doing better than a lot of people. So if you can be grateful for those little things, then suddenly we can become grateful for bigger things. Like, hey, I own a car. Like, that's pretty amazing. Instead of waiting for, okay, there's this big event,
True.
Christmas, right? The whole year is bad, but then there's Christmas, and then I'll feel grateful and happy at Christmas time. You haven't got those pathways lit up regularly enough to actually even notice the gratitude of the big events at that point. You can't just, or I don't think you can just turn it on. It takes practice. And gratitude to me, like at 33, I decided to practice gratitude, and I noticed how there were more and more things I could feel grateful for. And the universe loves a grateful heart. So, if the universe notices you being really grateful for having $5 in your pocket, suddenly you get 50, because clearly that's something that you're grateful for. So, I'll give you some more of that. If you get a great thing and you're not grateful for it, then my observation is that it's not going to stay in your life for very long, because, well, clearly you didn't appreciate it, so you didn't really want it, so therefore it goes away again. So gratitude, I think, is the single most profound practice that you can hold, actually. It works for everything.
I really like that, because I tell my clients all the time that gratitude is a game changer, and you just leveled up on that statement in so many ways. So thank you very much for that. So what are the first signs someone is disconnected from their body?
There are so many. One of the things to notice is the self-talk. When you think of your body, what are the comments that are happening in the back of your mind? Is it, oh, I'm too this, or I'm not that enough, or, oh, my body needs food again. What an inconvenience. So self-talk is a good one to pay attention to. Like, the vast majority of us, not everyone, but the vast majority of us have this little voice in the back of our head that continuously comments. And it's a really interesting little voice, because sometimes it'll say completely contradictory things with this absolute conviction that it's true. And you go, hang on a second, 5 minutes ago you told me, white is white. Now you're telling me black is white. Like, hey, I don't know where that comes from. But if you actually notice what that tape is saying to us about our bodies, that's a really big hint. The other one is, are they actually feeling good in their bodies? Are they feeling vital? Are they feeling alive? Are they, laughing loud? Are they, you can see a radiance of bodies that are healthy. There's a vitality that happens, which is actually literal. Like, our bodies emit light. Yeah. So if you look at somebody, go, oh, they look bright. It's literal. It's actually the photons or the units of light that they emit that you're picking up on. So a body that's healthy and vibrant is going to emit a lot of light. And you don't get a vibrant, healthy body by default. It's something that requires care and attention, certainly to once you're adult anyway. Like, little kids tend to have beautiful, bright, vital bodies because of what they came in with. Although that can be really easily destroyed with junk food and the light as well. And so that kind of ties in together with how well are you looking after your body. I mean, everybody knows what you're supposed to be doing. But are you doing it because you have to? Or are you doing it because you love your body and you want it to feel good? Do you want it to thrive? So you can look at somebody's supermarket trolley and get an idea of whether they're disconnected from their body or not. So for me, disconnection is kind of the opposite of embodiment in that way. If you're disconnected from your body, you don't feel what your body is trying to tell you, and you go off and do whatever you want to do, or whatever your mind tells you that you want to do, instead of listening and following the the body intuitions that are telling you these are the things that I need to thrive. So if you, a sign of this being disconnected from our bodies is literally, well, is your body actually healthy? Is it actually vibrant? You know, it doesn't have to be sick to be not well. Yeah, there's a difference between, I'm okay, I'm not hurting too much and I haven't got any big diseases and I feel great. You know, there's that gap between those two. So if you haven't ever given a thought to how is my body feeling today, you're probably disconnected from your body. So it's usually pretty clear whether somebody is disconnected from their body or not. In my experience, mind you, I am a body worker, so I have a lot of opportunity to observe that.
It's very interesting that you said that you can tell by the shopping trolley of someone who's connected to their body or not, because like whenever I go to pay for stuff and I look at other people's trolley when they're in the queue, I'm kind of like, damn, man, they eat a lot of junk, right? Because like where I live is Coca-Cola, tortillas, bread, sweet stuff. And it's like, you know, people here, like they consume 3,000 and 4,000 calories a day just off of junk, sugar, and food that just like, you know what I mean, I would never even touch. And I actually ask myself sometimes, like, do they not really like see the effects that is doing to their body? But I guess, I mean, I used to be fat too, and after I had my surgery and stuff. But what happened to me is I got to a point where I was like, no, this is not good enough. So I need to take action and change. But I guess like for a lot of people, that moment doesn't come unless they get really sick. But for me, that was my wake up call to change my life. And I've not looked back since, and I've never been that fat ever again, you know? And, you know, so I guess I can understand, but at the same time, man, you know, like you feel slow, you're sluggish, you know, you can't look at yourself in the mirror, because I used to look at myself in the mirror. I didn't like what I saw, but it took a moment for me where I bent down to tie my shoes. I leaned over actually, and I was short of breath. My belly was so big. And then I was like, nah, bro, you got to get back in the gym. And from that moment, I just like something flipped, and I never looked back. And I've been in good shape since then. I mean, I was in good shape before the surgery, but like that was like a reboot to like, oh, okay, we need to get back to it. So how can embodiment practices help someone stuck in overthinking or self-criticism?
So those are the two extremes we've been talking about. So overthinking and overcriticism and self-judgment, they're all mind-based things. They're that little voice that has that endless amount of opinions on everything and anything running the show, versus living in a place of stillness in your heart. So sometimes I get asked, you know, how do you listen to your heart? And what you do is you ask your questions, and you can even say out loud, heart, tell me the answer to this question. And it can sometimes help to put your hands on top of your heart. And you could even visualize like a pearl floating through shampoo slowly down into your heart. So like if you can focus your attention in on your heart and ask your question, and then notice the very first thing that comes up. Now, often that's a very quiet little voice. And the voice in your head, the critical of analytical overthinking voice, will often jump in straight away or very quickly and have very loud opinions and very loud things it wants to say. So pay attention to that first impulse that comes up. And it's very soft, it's very gentle, and it takes practice if you're very good at worrying or overanalyzing or overthinking. But just keep coming back to it. Like, what have you got to lose, right? Just go into the stillness and the quietness and ask your heart, you know, what do you need me to do, or what is How is this in alignment with what you truly desire? The heart in and of itself has got a bigger field than the head does electromagnetically. And it has its own circuit. And most of that is actually nerves traveling from the heart up to the brain. So our heart is meant to be the place where we feel things and then inform our minds and our actions from there. So getting away from overthinking and being critical and overanalyzing requires to be still. So that's where mindfulness and yoga and things like that come in handy, because they're practices towards that. And then really listening to the whispers that come. And then the more you can do that, the easier embodiment will be, because you've now established a relationship and some circuits of support and collaboration with your body and with your heart and with your soul.
Would you say then that is like the cause for procrastination then? Because procrastination is, in my opinion, sort of like overthinking. So then would you say that then that's a lack of embodiment that causes procrastination?
Procrastination is an interesting one. Like, I think there's a few different potential motivators. Like, I'm thinking about times when I'm procrastinating on stuff. Like, for example, some tasks that are generally judged as unpleasant, like tidying the house or something like that. And if I or my body, so I'm not going into the mind here, don't really want to be doing that right now, then we can procrastinate till the cows come home. But if I'm in the right state, then it's an easy task that takes no time. If I'm in an unconducive state, it'll take 3 times as long and exhaust me 5 times as much. So how do we then get to be the masters of our own state? So, for example, one thing could be music. You put on the music that just makes you happy, and you basically distract it from what you're doing, and you're just enjoying the music, and voila, suddenly the house is tidy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because you were talking about overthinking, right? And what came to mind was procrastination, because I think that, because obviously as a coach, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people say, oh, well, I need to think about it and stuff like that. And for me, that is just procrastination, because for me, what I find is that most people don't realize that the now is where the love, happiness, joy, and abundance exists. So if you want to have those things, when opportunities come, you need to not think about it, and you feel that it's a good opportunity, because that's the first thing you want to do. You want to say yes, because that's the feeling part that comes in, and then the mind kicks in, because you failed maybe in the past or something happened, and then you start to overthink. And then that's where I was thinking in terms of procrastination, because the feeling that you get the first time is the one that you should go with. It's telling you yes, but then it's like, oh, it costs too much, or can I do it, or am I going to be successful? Maybe I'll fail. And then, Todd, remember what happened last time, and this and the next and the third. So this is where, like, when we were talking about overthinking and self-criticism, we was thinking, oh, maybe there's some sort of a link there to procrastination.
Well, generally you procrastinate because there's something unpleasant about whatever it is that you're choosing not to do right now, would be my thought. And I'm guessing that when you propose to somebody to come and do a program with you, the actual objection is, I don't know how uncomfortable I'm going to be in this transformation that you're proposing. I know I want to be the person at the other side of it who's done that, but how hard is it going to be to take those steps from here to where I want to go, even although I will have your support and your expertise and your knowledge in how to guide me there. And And yes, you're absolutely right. If your heart is saying, yes, I want to be that person, and right now you have an opportunity to get there the easy way, which is with coaching and support and resources and books and recipes, whatever it is. But then the mind goes, I'm scared of this because it's going to require effort on my part that I've been putting off for most of my life so far. And I don't know how uncomfortable and hard this is going to be. Then the mind will find reasons for saying no, or I'll think about it. So yeah, I agree with you on that one completely.
Okay. So what are the practices people resist the most, and why are those often the ones they need the most?
I think the answer to that is implied in your question, isn't it? We generally resist the thing the most that we need to do the most, because if it was easy, we would have already done it. You know, like thinking about things like exercise or changing your diet or whatever. Like everybody knows what they're supposed to do, but the size of the transformation required when you're at the foot of the mountain looks so big and huge that it just gets overwhelming, and like, oh, this is too hard. You know, in order for change to be sustainable, it's all about making it into tiny little bite-sized things. And often the first thing is knowing that you actually have choice in any given moment. So for example, if you always have coffee first thing in the morning, when did you start that habit? And when did you last re-examine that? Like, do you even like coffee? You know, what is it you like about it? Is it the flavor, or is it the kick, or is it that you get a headache if you don't have it? And that's feedback from your body saying, hey, you're overdoing the coffee, by the way, right? What other things could you do? You could have tea, and you could have herbal teas. You could have a glass of water. That might be a good idea. You could go for a walk. You could sleep a little bit longer. You could have a shower. Like, be aware that you have choice at any given moment in how you show up and what you do. So some habits are great because they support our thriving and our well-being. Like, for example, actually getting up in the morning is a good thing. Yeah. You're not really going to get much out of life if you don't get out of bed in the morning. But there are some habits that might have supported you well at one point in time that now don't. So re-examine that, you know, like instead of just automatically going doing X, Y, Z, it's like, just take a step back and go, well, what other options do I have? And then maybe try a few of them, and you might circle back to coffee. And that's fine. But at least now you know why you're choosing coffee, because you know all the other things just don't quite do whatever you need it to do for you. So with any transformation, with any practice, you just start with something small that, you know, you can do without too much resistance and without too much bother. And then you do that for a period of time, and then that just becomes a normal thing of this is what you do. And then you tackle the next thing. So they say it takes about 3 weeks to establish a habit. So, for example, somebody wants to get fit, and I know this from people who own gyms and yoga studios, and people go, oh, I can't dance, or I can't move, or I'm not flexible, so I can't come to your yoga class because of that. And it's like, well, you got to start where you are. Like the first thing about changing your life is actually acknowledging and accepting where you're at and knowing what got you there. And then you take a small step. So if you want to get fit, you don't have to go and run a marathon tomorrow. Maybe today, just go for a walk around the block, you know, and do that for 3 weeks. And then in 3 weeks' time, you know, you're actually walking around the block twice because you've actually got that bit extra fitness now. So now choose a different path that maybe is a bit further or takes a little bit longer. And then you do that. And then when you get bored with the slow walking pace, you just do a couple of 100 meters where you sort of lightly jog. And then the jogging becomes longer and longer. And eventually you can run this marathon, but you don't go from, you know, A to Z in one jump. There's a sequence of events, you know, like trying to run a marathon when you haven't done any exercise is actually not kind to your body, you know, because it needs the resources to be able to do that. So just make little incremental changes. And then two things will happen. One, you'll get better at whatever it is the change that you've chosen to make. And the second thing is that that, you were like that once and now you're like this. So you made a choice that, like you did, you made a choice that radically altered your life path. Like at the time, it was a fairly small choice. I will go to the gym every day. But over time, it makes a massive, massive difference. And then other changes are going to be easier to implement. So I would suggest go with the easiest thing first. Do the thing that you go, yeah, I can easily do that. Like I can go for a walk around the block, and then as you increment it, choices that right now look really difficult, like changing your diet, say, actually get easier as well. You can say, oh, I'm not going to eat grains anymore, or I'm going to add more vegetables, or whatever it is, and just gradually increase that and increase your knowledge base and, draw on support from friends who've done this before. Like, let's face it, most of the things being done have been done before. So why reinvent the wheel? Look for support. Maybe you need an accountability buddy. Hey, I'm going to send you a text every day when I've done X, Y, Z. And if I don't send you a text, can you please check in with me if I did my Whatsy today? Or it's a bit like playing an instrument. You don't pick up a guitar and play a concert straight away. There's many hours of practice in that. And with a guitar, somehow, with an instrument or any other skill, we accept that, 10,000 hours is sort of gold standard before you're considered a master. So why do we then, where our bodies and where our health is concerned, go, okay, I need to be at mastery stage tomorrow? Yeah, like that's basically self-sabotage by setting the bar way, way too high. And then, you give up before you even get started.
Okay, got you. So we can take a very short break here to say, guys, if you're resonating with this conversation, pause for just a second. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. That's how we share these messages and grow this community. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246 or the Conscious Man 7 podcast. Now, back to Iris. So can you share a client story where embodiment completely shifted their life trajectory?
Well, the short answer is no, because of confidentiality. But there are a few things that drop into my mind at this point. So one was a person that came in for chiropractic care. And when she came back for her second visit, she looked so different. I literally did not recognize her. And that was, usually it takes more visits than that. But literally she went from dim and in pain and face looking a certain way to looking like somebody who was bright and vital and bubbly in the one session. So that to me was amazing. That's one transformation. There was another transformation of a client I had who, so this was a Lifeline client, and she came in telling me, look, I've always got debt. My credit card is always maxed out. I'm paying all this interest. And, whenever there's a little bit of money on it, I always spend it straight away. So we actually ran a session on her credit card where she, cleared the blocks around her credit card and made her credit card a friend. And 2 months later, she had it all paid off and didn't pay interest again because she always managed to pay it off when it was due.
That credit card situation may sound really simple, but it's actually kind of hard for some people because some people are shopaholics and they just, like the same addiction we were talking about to dopamine with social media, for some people it's shopping and is akin to gambling, smoking, drinking. It's the same addiction, it's the same chemical hormones being released when you're doing it, so that's pretty big, even though for other people they might say, that's just stop spending. But I like to remind people that everybody has their own vices or their own things that are unique to them that give them challenges, and I can, I used to be addicted to Doritos. Yeah. So I had to stop myself for meeting them, because I used to see, like, I would eat a whole big bag of Doritos every weekend. This was back in the day. And I would see my body change Monday morning, but I'd be good Monday to Friday, and Saturday night and Sunday, I would eat a whole bag. And then I was right. After a while, like, no, this is terrible behavior. You know what I mean? Every Monday I'm full of water weight, you know? So I share that to say that, you know, and everyone has their thing. So that credit card is a big thing. The Doritos for me was a big thing because I had really liked Doritos, but now I see them and I pass them and don't even feel anything, you know? So for men especially, where do you see shame and trauma showing up most in the body, and how do you guide them to face it without collapsing?
You know, I think the way our society is set up is really not good for anyone. Like, we've had, you know, women's lib and feminism, which finally seems to get to a point so women are empowered to actually be the mistresses of their own lives, which is fantastic. But the equivalent process doesn't seem to have happened for men. So I look at how a lot of men that I meet seem to be living their lives, which is having to be the leader, having to be the person in charge, having to be the one who makes the decisions. I mean, we're probably going back a couple of decades now. And, you know, for men who don't like women or don't see them as people, puts them in an incredibly isolated position. One of the things that's vastly underrated in our society is collaboration, right? If everybody has a gift, everybody has something that lights them up, gives them joy, is easy and amazing because they just love it so much. And that's what they're designed to contribute to the world. And a lot of people don't actually know what that is. Like, generally, it's like, well, look back when you were a kid. What were the things you loved doing when you were a kid? You know, maybe start there. So if everybody can offer their gift to the community, then we're automatically going to get all the bases covered, right? Like, my thing might be baking the most amazing cakes. And I put so much love into these cakes because it gives me so much joy. And then I give it to other people and they eat the cake and they feel fantastic because, well, it's a healthy cake for starters. But, you know, there's the energy that was into it, you know, builds it up and makes them feel good. And then somebody else loves inventing new stuff and they look at a problem and they go, well, what if we did this and then that? And then we've got this thing and then that can solve this problem. And they can eat my cake and I can benefit from their invention, right? So we have this stereotypical thing of what men and women do that doesn't serve either. And instead of looking at life and at the world through a lens of collaboration, you know, like, if I can give you something that I've got overflow of and I can give off, and you give me something or somebody else in the community, and then it comes back to me in some way so that I'm supported in my life, right? Like, that's what community is for me. So if we can stop looking at life through a lens of competition and start looking through life through a lens of collaboration, that takes the pressure off everyone. Like, people keep quoting this Charles Darwin thing, oh, you know, survival of the fittest. But it actually isn't, right? It's non-survival of the least fit, right? And the reason why humans are doing so well as a species is actually because of grandparents, grandmothers in particular, but grandparents, right? Grandparents who look after grandchildren, teach and nurture while the adults, the parents go and do other things. So if we can take the pressure off a little bit and kind of go, okay, so what is it that needs to be done, or what's the problem that needs to be solved, and what can we all bring to the table and find a way that works for everyone and gives joy to everyone and is good for everyone, then we can step out of this incredible isolation. You asked me where that shows up in men's bodies, and I guess their bellies. Like, you've probably noticed the middle-age spread in a lot of men. They carry these big bellies around. I suspect that's where all of that sits. With this, I came across a little clip the other day where somebody was talking about, the collaboration versus the competition thing, which made a lot of sense to me, because it literally changes how you live your life. And if you're in that constant competition state and you feel in yourself that you're not measuring up, that you're not actually quite that, but you have to pretend all the time, there would be a lot of shame wrapped up in that. And I think where that place goes is probably their bellies.
Yeah, I would say yes, because a lot of middle-aged men have pretty big bellies. Some of them look like they're pregnant and all. So how do shame, trauma, and addiction live in the body, and what does it take to free them?
Well, I think we need to circle back to the other parts of the conversation that we have already had, which is, one is realize that there is a problem. Like, you can't solve a problem, or you can't move on from something unless you actually acknowledge that it's there. So firstly, acknowledge all is not well. And that requires stepping out of this pretense of, I'm the biggest, best, brightest, I'm fine, I'm fine. Whereas what oozes out of you is, I'm not fine. But unless you actually acknowledge that there's a problem, you're going to stay stuck there, and you won't allow support, help, love, nurture in. And then find out what the problem actually is. Like, if it's shame, like, the vast majority of the time, shame is misplaced and used for manipulation. Like, shame is appropriate if you knowingly did something really bad and really harmful to somebody else. Full stop. But most of us feel shame because of stuff that's not even necessarily in our control, or feel shame about things that are in our control, but because we're judging around them, they become much bigger than what they actually are. Like, for example, with food, like, people eat chocolate and they feel shame around that. So instead of feeling shame as you're eating the chocolate, how about you have one piece and you just really be present for that experience, savor it, roll it around in your mouth, feel the texture, feel the flavor, feel the yumminess. And I would be fairly certain to say that if you eat chocolate that way, you only need the one piece because you actually experienced it. Most people who eat a whole bar of chocolate haven't tasted any one of those pieces, and then they can feel guilty and shameful over having eaten a whole block of chocolate, right? So if it's shame, then what are you actually feeling ashamed of? Like, in what way do you feel like you're coming short? And is that actually even a thing? Is that what your community requires of you? Like, husband goes out, works his bum off so that he can provide an amazing house, an amazing holidays, an amazing car for his family, right? Maybe what that family wants is for you to come home earlier, live in a smaller house, not go on extravagant holidays, and drive a smaller car, but you're actually there for them, and you play with them, and you make dinner, and you are fun, and you're engaged with your family, and they can feel how much you love them. like if the husband comes home after the kids have gone to bed, like for all intents and purposes, that dad is not present at all in those children's life. He's a weekend dad because that's when they see him, right? If they see him on the weekend. Chances are the things that you're feeling shamed about are actually not what other people are requiring of you, but there's all this stuff all around that keeps you locked in that dysfunction. So next step is, ask the people who love you the best and want you in their lives. Like one of the things that I'm aware of from a male point of view is a lot of men, want to be needed. And it's like, that's probably not going to cut muster anymore, right? Women can earn their own money, buy their own homes, go on their own holidays, all that sort of stuff. So if a woman can do all those things or is doing all those things and still wants to spend time with you, what she's doing is she's wanting you in her life. Like you being in her life is making her life better, right? So what are the things that you bring to the relationship that are unique to you? And is it your flavor of humor? Or is it because you're really good at whatever it is? It's going to be around how, I think that's a truism, like people will not remember what you said necessarily. They will definitely remember how you made them feel, right? So how can you show up that means that other people feel safe in your presence, feel heard in your presence, feel appreciated, feel valued, feel possibly stretched a bit in terms of growth? Those things are generally far more important than whether or not you ate a whole block of chocolate or not, right? And because those things are much more fulfilling to the soul, the whole system starts relaxing and you can start getting away from that dopamine because you've got oxytocin happening now. You've got actual bonding. You've got, a family that's knitted together with bonds of love and presence and seeing each other. Like a lot of us, we get into a relationship and 10 years down the track, we still relate to the person we thought we met 10 years ago. Probably wasn't, right? But we made decisions about who they are and how they live in the world. So we haven't given them the courtesy of checking in with where they're at and how have they grown in the meanwhile, right? So you get two people that have been in a relationship for however long, and they still have the opinion that their spouse is who they were, who they thought they were back when they first got together. But that's probably not true. Like people evolve, people change, people's needs change, relationships need to change and morph with that. So, step one, acknowledge that, acknowledge if you're not feeling good about yourself, acknowledge if you're not feeling good in your body, acknowledge if you're not feeling good in your life, and then speak to the people you love, get a coach, go to therapy, find someone that can help you through that process. Don't reinvent the wheel and don't do the old, rugged individualism thing. I've got everything covered by myself, because humans are actually communal creatures, right? We thrive best when we have a community and when we feel we're belonging to something bigger. And then take things a small sustainable step at a time. Don't expect to be the master at it straight away. Don't expect there to be no relapses. We all go back to bad habits. So when we get triggered or we're tired or something else went wrong, we often go back to what's habitual from way back when. But then that's being human. Forgive yourself, move on, and then go back to being the best version of yourself when you can, right? Like life is a dance. And I was talked about holding all the contradictory things all at once. There's a dance in that. And if we have a very rigid and fixed idea and expectation of this is how life is going to be, or this is the thing I'm looking forward to, the promotion or whatever, and then everything's going to be great, you're missing the entire journey because you're not being present for it, because you're living in your head. So drop into your body, make your body your friend. Like if you do nothing else, practice gratitude. Let your body be your friend and consult with your friend what's going on about you right now. And then take the appropriate steps that you're being asked to do. So, it's as simple as that and it's as hard as that. And notice that if you have resistance to something, that's probably the one thing that you need to do or engage with the most.
Okay. So how does embodiment work with sexuality, desire, and intimacy?
Well, we're back to being present. Again, sex has become something that I actually find it really ugly to think about things like porn and stuff like that. It's just become something for a dopamine hit, whereas sexuality can actually be something sacred, where two people become more than just the sum of the two. And what's required to step into that part where sexuality is actually something sacred and something that you build on is look at your partner not as somebody who you know owes you something in terms of sex. There's nothing unsexier than that, you know. I'm sure my experience is just unique in the thing of men wanted to have sex with me because they wanted to feel better about themselves. I wasn't in the equation at all there, other than as a pretty body. You know, it was actually not tuning into my energy and finding out where I was at. And every time a woman opens her body up to a man, he leaves an imprint of the energy in her body, right? So if a man wants to have sex with a woman because he's feeling angry and frustrated and he feels better after the fact, that energy went into her body. She's now holding that. Like, that seems a bit unfair to me that she should be holding that in her body, right? So approach sexuality as something that's really sacred. I mean, that's where babies are made. It doesn't get much more sacred than that, right? I would actually recommend doing a tantric course, but a really good one. And tantra is not about sex as much as it is about connection. And you will get different techniques and different suggestions to try out that actually mean that you really tune into each other's energy in ways that are not sexual, so that when you do have the sex or when you do have the intimacy, when you do make love, it's built on a whole thing other than, you know, the mechanics of, you know, penis and vagina, basically. And that makes it a much more deep connection than just having sex. I don't know where I read that, but somebody said, oh, men need to have sex to feel loved and women need to feel loved to have sex, which seems contradictory. So everybody's feeling unloved, right? So expand the intimacy to not just the bedroom, but, you know, are you cooking dinner together? Are you talking to each other? Are you have you got eye contact? Like, eye contact is something that women crave. And hardly ever get, you know, to the point to where we look away because, you know, we can't even handle the thing that we crave. How can we perceive each other as whole beings? Can we not relate to our partners from our wounded part? And above all, don't be entitled. You know, it's something that needs to be given. It's not something that should be taken, in my not so humble opinion. Make it a dance, you know, like make the intimacy something that permeates all day, every day, to the extent that's possible, I guess. You know, like if you're both up at work for 8 hours a day or longer, then obviously you can't do it then. But, you know, you might be able to send each other a text, or you might be able to give each other a phone call or something like that, just to keep that connection. And then the sex flows from there really easily all by itself.
Okay. So what role does shadow work play in reconnecting with the body?
Well, basically shadow work is owning and integrating everything that we have so far denied. So in a way, we've been talking about shadow work the entire time in terms of all these energies, emotions, and beliefs that are stuck in our body that we don't want to look at because it seems too hard, but it actually is making life a lot harder because we're not looking at it and not processing it. And shadow work is interesting because it's just the unowned parts. So you would think that those are the parts where you judge yourself for being mean or lazy or what other things, too angry or too emotional or too this or too that. But for some people, shadow work is actually allowing in more joy. Like if they've been brought up to be incredibly serious and incredibly intense and incredibly focused, they might have a hard time with just being lighthearted or playing or doing something just because it gives them joy, not because it leads to an outcome. I think one of the things we've lost in our society is singing, for example. Like once upon a time, people would whistle, people would sing, and it didn't have to sound good. It just had to be fun, right? Now, apparently mothers don't sing to their babies anymore because it doesn't sound like the YouTube version of whatever, And it's like, that's completely beside the point. The point is for your baby to connect through energy, through your voice. And your baby wants you, doesn't want some, singer that's been, equalized or whatever on a CD. Your baby wants your energy. Your baby wants your voice because that's what they grew up with in the womb. So they know your voice, they know your energy. They can be blindfolded and know which ones are your hands, Can we make art something that we do just for fun rather than something that needs to be perfect by the time it's finished? Anyway, that was a side story.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So this leads into my next question then. So what role does embodiment play in parenting and breaking generational trauma?
Yeah, that's huge. The things that get passed on as trauma from one generation to the next are all the unowned parts, emotions, beliefs that are not helpful to thriving in a human body. So if we take embodiment as being synonym to being present, so what does being embodied or what does being present mean? It actually means perceiving what's going on in the moment right now through a lens of not judging it, not based on old ideas, not based on old behaviors, not based on old things that happened. And the problem is that, the thing that's taboo in a family, when a child brings that up, it triggers a whole bunch of stuff. And then that child gets taught, we don't do that, or you can't do that, or that's not good enough, or if you do that, then you're bad, or whatever. So that's how it gets passed on. So if, you can do your inner work before you have children, ideally, and you can be really present for that child, then it's okay for that child, for example, to have a tantrum because that child doesn't have the tools to really deal with that energy in any other way at present. They've got this tiny body and it's got all these big emotions and like, what do I do with that? So if a child can have a tantrum, for example, and just allow that tantrum to go, then they haven't been shamed because of the emotion that they were feeling. And that means that down the track, they will be able to deal with those emotions much more easily. And the lid doesn't get shut on that particular Pandora's box in the next generation. So, parenting is a massive thing. And it's something like I watched it in practice, mums in particular, how relentless it is. And I chose for that reason not to have children myself. So I'm probably not the best person for parenting advice. This is just things that I've been watching over the years with people that have come to me for help. Like a child comes in not as a blank slate. And what they need is for you to hold the space for them to find out who they are. If you have a dysfunctional family, you will have usually one child that's really good and really abides by all the rules. And then you've got a child who goes the opposite and does everything that they're not supposed to be doing. Because the family as a whole becomes like one unit, where all the bases are covered. So if each person in the family, particularly the parents, can be a whole person in themselves and can hold all the emotions and all the energies by themselves, then they don't have a requirement for a child to embody something, and they then in turn can become whole human beings. I've been in families where the parents were treating their children as whole beings, even when they were very small. And, you know, when there was a decision to be made in the family, the children were consulted. They didn't necessarily get their way, but they were consulted and they were listened to and they were acknowledged in what their preferences were. And those children grow up to be adults that are so much more at peace in themselves. Don't numb down, don't go doing drugs, you know, own their worth and own their own peace. So it would be lovely to have a society where children are raised in that way. It would also be lovely to have a society where more than just two people are raising the one child. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that's true, because then that child has a bigger circle of belonging, and it will be able to role model on different people doing things in different ways and seeing what happens when you show up in the world in this way, when you happen to show up in the world in that way. Like, that's what stories are about. You know, if you do this, then chances are this is going to be the outcome. And if you do that, then chances are that's going to be the outcome. So what would you choose? You know, like what's most in alignment with how you show up in the world? But until we get to that point or get back to that point, then, you know, as far as the parents go, the more work you can do on yourself before you become a parent or when you are a parent, the less stuff you will be passing on to the next generation.
Okay. So how does embodiment support men specifically in their journey of masculinity and consciousness?
So embodiment for men means knowing and owning their own worth. And if you can know and own your own worth, you're not fazed by much, you know, like, because, you know, you can take things not personally. You don't easily feel slighted. You don't fly off the handle. You don't feel not included. Life just gets so much easier. And, you know, some men show up and it's like, oh, well, that thing is women's work. Say, for example, cooking, right? I know men that have never cooked a meal in their entire life because they went from having their mother cooking for them to the wife doing all the cooking. So, you know, they might be able to boil an egg, but that's about the extent of it, right? And to me, if you're going to be a human being living on this world, cooking a meal is a fairly basic life skill, right? And why should it always be the lady in their house who does the cooking? Like, you know, in Australia, if you if the women, probably shouldn't be saying this because I'm giving away the secret, but if women want a day off from cooking, they suggest to the husband that a barbecue should be done. And then the men are out there and they're lighting fires and cooking food and having a great time, right? So how about if we all show up in life as human beings who need a complete skill set, right? And then if you happen to be with a woman who loves cooking and for her it's recreational, then sure. But, you know, like, also do sometimes cook so that she can have a day off. You know, it's like embodiment is the difference between living a life of reactivity and feeling all those things you don't want to feel and then stuffing them back down again, and living a life where it's almost like life flows through you. And like there's this still, it's like this, the eye of the storm, there's this still center in the middle, and that's where you live, right? You know your worth, you know your value, you know your boundaries, and all of that stuff can be going on around on the outside, but you can still hold your own peace in that. And that's actually something that women crave from men, is that, like, for the man that they partner with to be that place where they can just cuddle in and just relax and feel safe. So if men can learn, practice presence and embodiment and provide that safe space for the woman in their life or the women in their life, that is such a gift. Not that you should be looking to do embodiment for that, because unless you're doing embodiment or presence for yourself, it's not going to work. But I think men will find that if they do practice that and they can show up as the foundation. So somebody the other day said, women are like the ocean, and we are. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of currents, there's waves, there's storms. And that man saw himself and his role as being the harbor wall, right? So the storms can go on and the waves can smash, but that's just that solidity, foundational, rock solid. I am here. And then that's the place where the women can relax and feel safe, even if they have a storm going on.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I always tell men that they need to work on themselves, find their purpose, get in shape, read books, educate themselves, find it, you know what I mean, be on get in tune with what they really want to do, because men have a different role and responsibility, and it's hard to be a man, right? To be honest, right? And there's so much that's required of us. But when we do the work, then we're able to, I call it being a safe pair of hands. That's the term that I use. And I think that if more men were to really be on their journey more and be a safe pair of hands, I think we would have a much different society today. So what societal shifts would you like to see if more people became embodied?
Do you know, as you were just saying that, okay, this is a bit provocative, but I think it's true. I've heard men say to me, women can't handle power, and women are far too emotional. Often the reason why women are emotional is because they have had to put up with other people's shitty emotions, taking them on, taking them in for far, far too long, right? And when there comes that point where you go, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, the man in question feels his ruffled feathers not soothed, and then they think the woman is being emotional, right? I'm going to digress a bit here. And then menopause comes along when all those peacekeeping hormones go away, and suddenly the woman goes, I'm not doing this anymore. And suddenly all those emotions that she was carrying for the entire family until then get given back to those particular family members. Right. So I keep digressing. I shouldn't do that. Where did we come from?
Right. So what societal shifts would you like to see if more people became embodied?
Societal change. Yes. So being embodied means that you're grounded in yourself, you're grounded in your own worth, you're grounded in yourself. What that then enables you to do is to have an emotion, process the emotion, let the emotion go, take the information the emotion is giving you. So what that means in society, and that's where I was going with that before, like I've never seen a woman start a world war. I've never seen a woman start a dictatorship, for example. I see plenty of women running families, you know, on the whiff of an oily rag in terms of resources. And they can do that because they have to. So if men can be in a family, and process their own emotions, it becomes something magical. The woman feels safe, and the man can hold her in the way that she needs to be held. And then the thing with women is, if you give a woman that space, what she needs, she's going to give back 100-fold of what she received. And then we get this really magical virtuous cycle. So the shift in society, and I think we need to reclaim that as a humanity, because currently we are being led by the worst of the worst. Right? In order to get to the long levers of power, in order to become, you know, a politician, in order to become a captain of industry, in order to become, you know, a leader of a faith, generally you have to be prepared to walk all over other people and compromise your values to get to that position. And most people aren't prepared to do that, right? So they look at us as bleeding hearts, and we look at them as being harsh and corrupt. So as we each individually embody more and hold our highest frequency more often, what's going to happen is, as a humanity, we're going to get more cohesive. I've never met a person who wanted war. Anytime I've traveled to a different country, I've met people who are wanting to share their culture, share their traditions, share their food, have a laugh together, invited curiosity about how they experience life. That's what the vast majority of humans want. So why is it that we allow the worst of the worst to be the so-called leaders and decide to send young people to war or drop bombs on somebody else, or allow something on the soil that kills it off, or all of that stuff makes no sense if you look at it from a human point of view. So if we as individuals can opt out of that consumer loop that we talked about earlier, own our own power, know that our worth does not depend on what clothes we wear, and we can have whole families where children are treated as entire human beings with desires, wants, needs of their own and opinions of their own, then we're going to raise and raise and raise the frequency of humanity. And that means that those leaders at the top just will not get there anymore, because the worst behavior is no longer rewarded in that way, right? So if you can shift our focus back to that, back from competition to collaboration, it's like, if something is good for me and something is good for you, then let's do that. Biology is not one person wins, one person loses, right? Biology is, what can we do that suits, that will enhance the life of everything? And then as a result, what's going to happen is we're going to appreciate the earth that gives us life and that gives us every single gadget that we have, including like space rockets, right? We're going to start treating her with the reverence that she deserves, right? That's my biggest thing, really. Like, you look at all the environmental destruction that's going out there, like not humans. The people at the long levers of power are treating the earth like a resource, are treating the earth like they're entitled to fell all the trees and dig holes in it and build space rockets. And that's just not the case. Like, what Mother Earth is giving us is this body, and she's giving us a gift. And what we're here to do is to tend the garden and take care of nature, not just exploit it, and not so much as a thank you or a buy your leave. So those are the societal changes that I see happening as more and more people embody, and I put that together with own their own power as well. Like make the choices. And it's about being congruent with your heart. It's about holding that frequency. And if you hold a really, really high frequency, what that means is that if your predominant thing that you carry in your heart or in your energy field is gratitude or love or friendship or kindness or community or any of one of those things, then you ignite that in another person, because they go, hey, I've always been in competition, but friendship feels much nicer. If I approach everybody as a friend instead of as an opponent that I have to defeat, hey, life is so much more pleasant, right? So if we can hold the highest frequency in our own hearts, that's going to send a ripple effect all the way across the world, and everybody will be better for it.
Okay, so on the flip side, if humanity doesn't reclaim embodiment, what do you fear we'll lose in the next decade, and what becomes possible if we do?
I'm an optimist, and I know that things are looking really, really bad right now, and it feels like we're at the brink of destruction. But I think that what's happening is that there's more and more light, and that's physical from the sun because the magnetic field has dropped down. And that's more and more light in the hearts of people. So if you have more light, the shadows look bigger, right? They look darker. So it is my truth that we're actually just before a turning point where all the things that are unacceptable for us as individuals will become unacceptable for us as a human society. I think we're at the brink of discovering that we have more in common as a humanity than what separates us. We're about to discover that, you know, there's this beautiful African concept of Ubuntu, which means that I experience my humanity through being you with your humanity. And if you're not okay, I'm not okay, right? Like there's plenty to go around for everyone. I think it's currently 8 people earn as much as the poorest half of the entire world population. Like on what planet is that okay? You know, on what planet is that okay? I don't get it. So if we, you know, I really think that we're about to discover that, you know, you over there in Mexico and I here in Australia and have more in common with somebody living in China or in Africa than not. You know, we all want to live a good life, whatever that looks like for us. We all benefit from clean air, clean water, good soils, sunshine, laughter, community. You know, the differences are literally just skin deep, if that. And it is my true belief that that is actually where we're heading, and that we're probably going to have some very interesting changes happening sort of locally and on a world scale over the next 10 or 15 years. But that we're actually in the process of becoming, like Homo sapiens means knowledgeable human, I think. We're actually at the brink of becoming an integrated human or a wise human. So I don't particularly want to give energy to these apocalyptic visions of, you know, world wars or catastrophic collapse of ecosystems. Because once we're in that frequency, all the different solutions that we need to solve those currently look like really bad problems will be really easy, because we'll all be pulling, like, you know, 8 billion people. If we all focus on the same thing and if we all want the same thing and all hold a high frequency, it's going to, you know, we will find those solutions really easily in community.
Okay. I'm an optimist as well, but I'm also a realist. So I tell people that I do see us getting through this entire challenge that we have as a species. But from my journey and from having over 100 conversations now, every single person that has woken up has said to me that they woke up through pain. And all of these people have said that it only appears that human beings wake up when they go through a traumatic experience. So I am optimistic and realistic that I think that as a collective, we are going to go through more pain and more trauma, and then we'll rise. So I do think it's going to get darker and then it's going to get brighter, because that's the only way that we are reborn. Like a seed has to go through darkness when it's planted in the ground to grow. A baby is in darkness and then it comes out in the light, you know? So I do see it that way. So let's get you on this one. When people speak your name 50 years from now, what do you hope they'll say about the shift you sparked in how we...
I really look forward to a time when we can learn through joy rather than learn through pain. I think that's an energy and a belief system that's stuck in humanity as well. And I look forward to a time when children are brought up without the generational trauma that we talked about. And I don't think it's that far away. So I agree with you that, yep, things are probably going to look pretty dicey there for a while, but the awakening is happening and it's unstoppable. And probably that's the reason why the squeeze is getting even tighter, to try to get us back in our little fear box. But it's not going to work, because more and more people are embodied, more and more people are present.
Yeah, I definitely see that as well, because I do see that after we go through the darkness, I think that, because from what I see and my interaction with people, we have a lot of brilliant minds on the planet, with people that have solutions on how to get through. I think that we were going to have a complete new system where the best minds will basically rebuild the system. It will be based a lot more on energy, frequency, vibration, things like psychedelics. You will hear things about yoga. People will learn how to eat. People have life skills. People be talking about embodiment. So I do think that new systems will arise. And one of my endeavors with this show is to bring the best minds on the planet on it. And this show will become a library for people that want to learn and teach the next generation. And so far, we're doing a very good job on that. I've spoken to some of the best minds on the planet. I've never spoken to someone that takes embodiment to the level that you do. So, I'm really happy to talk to you today. Mm-hmm. So let's get you on this one. When people speak your name 50 years from now, what do you hope they'll say about the shift you sparked in how we live in our bodies?
What I endeavor to do, what's aligned with my heart, is thriving for people and planet. I consider the planet to be an aware consciousness. I will consider everything to have a consciousness and awareness. That's easy to see with animals and plants, maybe not so easy with rocks. But I can connect with a rock and feel its energy. So everything I do is designed to ultimately help people and planet thrive. And the way I do that is by empowering the individuals that I come across to be able to step into the next best version of themselves. So with my chiropractic, if a person is in pain, they live a very different life from a person who's not in pain, let alone feeling good in their body. In my spiritual business, it's about helping people shift and remove those energies and belief systems and replacing them with ones that support them in becoming the best version of who they can be, living their own life's purpose. So my purpose is to make thrival, as opposed to survival, the true north of the people that I encounter. And, maybe I'll still be around in 50 years' time and I'll be able to hear what people are saying about me. But ultimately, this isn't about me. I'm one person who's put on this part of the planet to do my part. Ascension and enlightenment and health is a communal effort, and we each have a little piece that's invaluable and necessary to complete the mosaic or the puzzle. So, once I'm gone, whether people remember me or not doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that right now I am living in alignment with my soul, in alignment with my heart, and in alignment with my purpose. And that the ripple effects that I ripple out, for the most part, because I'm human too, and I'm not perfect, but that the general frequency that are walking is a higher one, so that can spark other people to step up into their own next best version of themselves.
Okay, very, very, very well said. And, I really enjoyed this conversation today. It was a very interesting one for me because I just looked at embodiment as just something very simple, but you are able to expand on just a simplistic view on it. And in reality, embodiment is pretty much everything relating to elevation of human consciousness, being present, how we think about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we show up in the world and everything like that. So it was a very interesting conversation for me. I learned as well, as I'm sure that my listeners will have learned a lot as well. So Thanks for coming on the show today. And with that being said, please tell the lovely folks at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you, what work you do, if they want to work with you, and all that kind of good stuff. And anything you want to plug, like your book and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I have a website, which is www.irisangelys, so just my name.com. And on that, you can find pretty much everything. So I've written 2 books. One is called Passion to Thrive, which is primarily a women's empowerment book. Having said that, if you're a man and you read the book, you can easily find the male equivalents. And there are some truths in there that are valuable for everyone. The other book I've written is called Your Body is the Portal to Your Soul, which is what most of what we've talked about is based on. So, for example, there are different ways of interacting with your body that change how you feel about your body. And, they're not hard to do. Both books are an invitation to play with life rather than take it too seriously. Be curious, try different things out. If something doesn't work, doesn't matter. It's not for you, but at least you've tried it. And now you know that that's not for you, right? Like break out of the box that we've all been put in. So those are the books. I've also done a course also called Your Body is the Portal to Your Soul, where all the things that took me 30 years to put together and learn is put together in a step-by-step process, so that you can go from, I have a body, to my body is my best friend in the space of so many months. It's actually a really beautiful course, and I would be really interested how, mostly it's women doing it, but how men actually would relate to the material I've proposed. And I also do one-on-one sessions, and there's a link to contact me about that as well. I also have a YouTube channel, which is called Iris Angellys. And on it, there's a lot of meditations or guided visualizations, and poems that I've written that are in my books as well. Things for inspiration, podcasts, all sorts of goodies. I'm actually really proud of my YouTube channel. There's a lot of really good stuff on that. That's the easiest way to find me. Yes, there's Facebook and there's Instagram, but I'm not super active on those. So YouTube channel and the website are the best places to find me.
Okay, so everything Iris will be in the description of this podcast. And guys, so Christmas is coming up, and we were talking about embodiment today. So if you want to embody the version of yourself that will make you feel proud of yourself, and you would like to burn some fat, build some muscle, well, I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. Send me a message. Let's have a chat and see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. And if you're on a spiritual journey, or you would like to start a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, I can help you to get hold of some magic mushrooms. So again, hit me up on my socials at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook, and let's help you to confront and overcome these fears and traumas. And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of this podcast, and the store is on Amazon. It's called Todd and Me. And today I have on the Truth Isn't Learned, Truth is Realized shirt today. So if you would like to, support this podcast, you can head over to our merch store and get a cool shirt. And if you do get a shirt, you can take a photo of yourself in it. You can tag me on social media or email me if you like, and I would give you a shout out on the podcast and or tag you in my stories. Also, guys, if you would like to listen to this podcast and you simply don't like the ads, you can become a Patreon or Locals member, and you would get early releases of all the podcasts. You will get direct access to me because I get a lot of messages, but all my Patreon and local members will get first dibs on me because you'll be like, how I treat my clients, where they get first responses. So if you would also like to support this podcast for a couple of bucks a month, and you also can get rid of the ads, you can become a Patreon member or part of our locals community. Links also will be in the description of this podcast. So guys, if today's conversation opens something up for you, do me a favor, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, give us a 5-star rating, and share it with a friend who's ready to hear it. Your support helps us keep bringing powerful voices like Iris to the podcast, and together we can awaken more men and women to the truth that the body never lies. Guys, this has been another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, where we touch, move, and inspire you to pick up your cross, die to your old self, embody the version of yourself you want to be, and become the best version of yourself. Iris, today was a really good conversation. I enjoyed it. Thank you for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. And I'm sure that we have left people with a few things to ponder on how they can embody the best version of themselves. And we've left some tips for them to take action to do that.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an incredible conversation.
So, guys, this has been another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, where we go further and deeper than most. Thank you for listening to the podcast today. And remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.